Welcome back, Mobile Home Park Nation. Ferd here again today. I've got another great guest with me. This guy is the co-founder of one of the top 50 mobile home park owner-operators in the country. They've got 33 parks, 5 states, really high asset parks as well. Big footprint on the West Coast. Please help me welcome our guest, Daniel Weisfield. Daniel, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Ferd. This is fun.
Yeah, great, man. Well, I know a little bit about you. I know you've got a pretty good presence online and social media as well. But for those that are not familiar with you, tell us a little bit more about your background. You're smarter than me in that you're a lawyer, but you're not practicing. You figured that out. So I know you're a lawyer, but you spend your day job obviously running mobile home parks at Three Pillars Community. So tell us a little more.
Yeah, so I fortunately I got that law degree and I never practiced. I feel very grateful for that decision. I co-founded Three Pillar Communities in 2017. We're a top 50 owner of mobile home parks in the US, as you mentioned. How I got into it, actually I had a family background. My family immigrated to the United States from Israel. My mom was born on a chicken farm in Israel, so was my grandfather. Came to the US, with nothing. My grandfather had to put food on the table, so he started buying wrecked cars and fixing them in his backyard and selling them, and eventually saved up enough to open a garage, and eventually saved up enough to buy a mobile home park. That was in Seattle. He bought his first park about 35 years ago. And as a kid, I'd go help him, mow the lawn, paint the fence, take out the trash, hands-on owner-operator stuff. He was a farm boy, right? That's how he ran his business.
Sure.
And he saved money and he bought another one. And so my family, starting from very humble roots, was able to build a small portfolio of parks that they operated really as mom and pops, right? Mom and pop operators. And I did not think that was going to be my path in life. When I was a little kid, I didn't dream of one day being a mobile home park investor. I had other ambitions and aspirations. So I actually worked as a US diplomat for a few years.
Okay.
I got a law degree. I got an MBA. I worked in the corporate world at a company called McKinsey doing management consulting for big companies. And really a few years back, I realized the incredible opportunity in this space, right? That mobile home parks are such an important source of affordable housing for so many Americans and are a really good recession-proof business as an investor. And so when I had that realization, I realized the family business is actually a really good business to be in. And I partnered up with my business partner in 2017. We founded our company. And since then, we've been really fortunate. We syndicate our deals. We bring in money from outside investors. And we've done about 20 deals in the past 3 years. And then we fee manage my family's legacy portfolio. So collectively, it's about 33 parks in 5 states. We focus on the Western US, and we're vertically integrated. At this point, we have around 50 employees, creating value through acquisitions, asset management, property management, and manufactured home sales.
Okay, great. So that's what I was going to ask you on your family's legacy property. So those are still in the family. Those are still in the business. That's great.
Still in the family, and it's funny when I got into this space and convinced them, hey, let me fee manage your properties. I discovered so many skeletons in the closet. It's like anytime we go, you've seen this all the time, anytime you go buy a park from a mom and pop operator and you see that, they're either actually keeping the books and records or not keeping the books and records, and how they're actually collecting rents or not collecting rents. I realized that was my family's assets. That was us until 4 years ago. And that we've been fortunate to professionalize a lot of that stuff.
Hey, that's great. Yeah, that's part of the fun and not so much fun of buying deals from mom and pa's.
Yeah.
I had a guy, he owned 3 parks and like 50 rental properties, and I asked for the financial records for this park that I was trying to buy, and he said, "Here you go," and they were all in the same checking account, his personal account. I was like, "Well, I can't tell if the collections are good, or you got it mixed in there." He's like, "Well, I told you I'd give it to you," and it came with 24 park-owned homes. He gave me a box with 30 titles and said, "Pick 24." He had no idea which ones were which. He was a mover. He brought all these in over here. He's like, "Yeah, I don't care." And we're like, "Are you kidding me?" And he seriously gave us, and I have 30 titles, and we had to mix and match them, and they didn't all match up. It was crazy, but yeah. So I've seen it for sure as well. But yeah, that's great. Now, one thing that caught my eye about you a couple months back on LinkedIn, you had indicated the sales price or the market price of the homes in your I think in Washington. Tell it, and I invest in the Midwest, and a lot of my clients are even Southeast.
Yeah,
entirely different world than the MHP. park and home valuation. Tell us what is a nice double wide sell for in one of your communities?
Yeah, I've been looking forward to talking to you about this and trying to figure. Let's do the battle of the West versus the East and
Yeah,
figure out what's the better market to invest in, because I think that there's pros and cons,
sure.
right? So let's talk about the manufactured homes first, and then maybe we can transition to talk about actual parks and park values. So on the home side, I'd say in most of our markets, kind of a used 1970s single wide trades between 15,000 and 30,000, depending on the park.
Wow.
Used older double wides would be maybe kind of 40, 50,000 on average. Again, depending on the park and the location. For us to bring it, we're really active in bringing in new homes into our parks. In my view, that's the single best way you can upgrade a park.
Sure.
Right? Just replenishing the housing stock. So when we bring in a new single wide, our minimum cost to get that thing built in the factory and hauled over to the park and installed is around 60,000 for a single wide.
Okay.
And our minimum cost to get a double wide installed is around 80,000.
Oh, wow.
And the sale value of that double wide, in most of our markets, we can sell it for around 85, 90,000, kind of break even. That's kind of, middle of the road markets, not hot markets. And then in certain markets, like an example is Ukiah, California. It's a little place in Mendocino County, a lot of agriculture, a lot of housing demand, not a lot of supply. So in that market, we can sell that double wide for 150 or 160,000.
Wow.
And then in really prime markets like San Jose, California, which is where the Google headquarters is coming in and other tech companies, you can sell that double wide for 300,000 in a park.
It's unbelievable. 300. I've bought parks for less than 300,000.
I love it. I love it. And,
not even joking. That's great, man.
Yeah, and to me, that's part of the California and other West Coast markets have such an intense affordable housing crisis.
Sure.
And this to me is the magic of what we're doing. That the cost of one of these homes is 90,000, so you can sell a double wide break even for 90,000, even in these prime markets like San Jose, where you're not going to get a single family house for under $500,000.
Right. No, it's great. Yeah.
So the upside of that is residents take care of their houses. It's a real investment, right? And they're very sticky. The downside is in some of our more marginal markets, it can be hard to break even and sell a home for 90K. Right. And like some of our agricultural markets, for example, in the California Central Valley, most of those ag workers are happy to buy a used home for 20, 30, 40,000, but it's a stretch to get them to buy a new home for 80 or 90.
Got it. No, that makes sense. I mean, it's interesting. I was looking at a park the other day and I think it had 14 park on homes. So I was trying to put that in my valuation on top of the land. Like, what am I gonna pay for these homes? And how I valued them: 70s homes, $1,000; 80s, 5,000; 90s, early 90s, 10,000; late 90s, 15; 2000s, I'm in the 20s; 2010s, maybe 30,000. So considerably
explain
less.
that to me.
Considerably.
How do your financials work if you assign a value of $1,000 to an old 1970 single wide? What would your actual replacement cost be to bring in a comparable used home?
Used homes that old are pretty hard to transport. A lot of the movers won't even do it. Like, I bought a 1985 and I had to transport it 90 miles. And it took me 6 or 7 movers before I got one guy to do it. And he required me to re-weld the frame and re-shingle the roof. So that was a pain, right? So I would typically never bring in a 70s, 80s. If you're bringing them within 2 or 3 hours away, you're probably talking $5,000 transport and install. And then whatever the cost of the home is probably $6,000. I think that home I bought, I paid $7,500 for. By the time I shipped it, installed it, utilities, new roof, deck, I think I had to put an air conditioner in there. I was in for about $17,500 all in.
Wow.
Now I put it in a park.
We'd be double that. But then, so what rents are you getting on that home once it's installed?
That home I rented for like $825, and then the lot rent was $350. So I mean, the lot's still occupied. The lot's worth $35,000. So it was a good investment to bring in a home at half the cost. And I sold the home at cost. So it's a net. It's an infill lot. Used home 5 years ago, I'd never even bought a new home. Used was better. in the last 2.5 years, used homes are exceptionally difficult to find
Yeah.
and to source. I used to be able to go on Craigslist. There'd be 10 houses.
Yeah.
My first park, this is 2014. I spent $90,000 and I got 15 homes out of it, because what I would do is I'd go on Craigslist, I'd see 10, I'd look at the one I want and I'd buy it for $10,000, move it in, I'm in for 13, renovate them at 18. I'd sell it for 18 and I'd recycle the same 18,000. So I could do about 5 houses, and that was all the money I had available for that project. But I would recycle it and I ended up doing 15 or more lots, and then, increase the value of the park by several $100,000. But today, if I go on Craigslist to find that used home, I'm going to find 3 of them. They're all going to be garbage, and they're going to want 15,000 for them.
Yeah.
It's just that competitive. And we've talked to movers, and I've had movers I bought 5 or 6 homes from one guy and paid him to install them, paid him to do the concrete, paid him and said, "Hey, give me your list, man. I'll take care of you." And he said, "Somebody else already offered me $20,000 over whatever I pay to find him the homes. $20,000 referral fee
As a finder's fee." Wow.
So I can't compete with that. The economics doesn't make much sense for me. I'd rather just go get a new home, and you get a new home and they print them at the factory.
Let me ask you a question. So I'm derailing your podcast, but
it's all right.
This question might make you uncomfortable to answer on air. So I'm curious. How do you feel about buying a home from a resident that's located in somebody else's park and pulling it out and putting it in your park?
I don't like it. We don't do it. I had somebody try to do it once to me. I had somebody do it twice to me, and I got an anti-poaching sign. I think I told this story on one of my podcasts. I got an anti-poaching sign on the front, and I got a first right of refusal in the lease. And I had a dealer call me and say, I called my dad actually, because his dad knew him, and like a real dealer. The guy has a showroom and sells 1,000 homes a year. It was a pretty big size dealer, and we bought some homes from him. And good guy, friends. He called and said, "Hey, I just bought a home in your park. And I'm not going to be able to get it out before the end of the month. So what's your lot rent? I want to make sure I get you paid your lot rent." And he said, I'm not going to say his name, but hey, we said, we're not going to, we don't want to move out. They said, "Did you see the sign out front?" He was like, "Well, why don't you go drive by again? There's a sign out front. It says any home to be moved in or out of this park, any more applicant needs to be approved by management prior to home being sold or moving." So you were on constructive notice right out front, and every entrance and exit I got this sign. And I said, that puts you on notice that maybe there's a different provision. And now the guy that owned the house died, so his son inherited. His son didn't know about the lease, didn't care about the lease. He just called the dealer, said, "I want 10 grand. This home was appraised at 38,000. New home." And this guy was pulling it out of there. And I said, you want to be in the middle of a lawsuit if you pull that thing out of here. I said, "But I'll pay you a couple $1,000s for your referral fee for finding it for me. And we'll part friends." And he said, "Okay." So that sign I made $15,000 selling that house. So that sign's worth 15 grand to me. I've had that happen a couple different times. That provision in my lease, I start to price stuff. The other day, it's like, that's $100,000. I just found $100,000 because of this one provision or because of this one item. So anyway, we don't poach from other people. If they tried to us, it's going to be a problem. And we'll probably do it back. I've had to make that maneuver once, but I particularly don't do it to guys bigger than me, because it could be a problem. But like one park I've got is right down the street from a park that Sun owns, RHP, and then Strive. So three pretty big players within a mile of me. And I probably could have poached some of their homes, but I didn't feel like I'm doing it back. Now, so we just don't, right? So I did have one organic move in from one of their parks, and we just called them, "Hey, this person's leaving." They're like, "Yeah, we don't care." So I tried to part friends. So anyway, that's how we do it. And I think that's the best way to do it in the industry, because otherwise it's just a zero-sum game.
Exactly. Turns into an arms race. So everyone needs to observe the ethical rules as an operator.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. And the one benefit that we've had in that regard as well is like this park that I'm talking about in Kansas City with these other big guys next door. There are 3 types of homes in the park. There are the old homes that have been there forever that are not movable. So they're not, that tenants own. So those ones there's no realistic threat. There's a second type of home that there's about 20 of them that are nice, like 90s, 2000s, that came with the park. So I own them, and they're rentals. So those aren't going anywhere. And there's a third type of home. Those are people that bought the homes from me and used 21st mortgage for their financing. And there are restrictions on them being able to be moved until the first 36 payments are made. So practically those homes can't move either. And I had a form in the 21st mortgage packet, which I had my form says that I get access to I can basically call 21st mortgage and check in on your balance. I can call 21st mortgage and I can put a provision that you can't move the home until that recourse option, they call it a repurchase obligation, the 21st, until that burns off. It can't be moved. So practically you can't poach from me. And I got that sign out front and in the back. And as I tell you to say, and I still don't go poach from the other guys. As a matter of principle, but I could go poach from them because they don't have those steps in place because they're such a big animal. They're not watching the minutiae like I am.
So let me ask you another question. I'm seeing the way you think, right? You are applying a lawyer's mind to MHP operations, right? And figure out all sorts of savvy stuff, how to protect risk. What are the other like one or two savviest innovations you've come up with, either in terms of lease provisions or PSA provisions or other things that you've used your lawyer's mind to create value for yourself as an operator?
I don't know if I want to give away my sauce.
All
no,
right, sorry, buddy.
No, I'm kidding. Well, there's you know, as a lawyer, the worst thing about law school is you got to go to law school. The best thing about law school is they teach you how to think. And I already had 2 college degrees and had done well in school and done well in work. I went to law school when I was like 28 or 29, and law school taught you to think differently. So I think kind of paranoid. I say, my job is to worry, and then I think what could go wrong. So, for example, my inspection period in my contract, most people's inspection period begins like on the day of the contract or 5 days after. My inspection period begins after I receive the later of title, survey, and the 45 items on Exhibit D, some of which the seller ended up producing.
And your sellers agree to that?
They do, and if they don't, I have additional provisions that there's things that are outside of my control that are things like the timing and the result of the phase 1, the survey, the appraisal, and the insurance company giving me a binder of insurance. So I have in my contract, even in an instance that is after the expiration of the inspection period, in the event of one of those 4 circumstances, if I get an unsatisfactory result, I can drop the contract and get a refund of my earnest money, which means practically, and this is worth 100 days. And practically, if I don't have a survey in my possession, can I be satisfied with it? Of course not. I need to see it, which means I don't have to order my survey until the last day of my inspection period. In a table A Alta survey with 10 items, it's going to take 6 to 8 weeks. So I just bought myself 6 or 8 weeks. Now I can't drop the property if the survey comes back good, but what I bought myself is 6 more weeks to go raise capital on a syndication. I bought myself is more time to do market research, more time to find used homes, more time to hire a manager, more time I've got 5 deals under contract right now. I know some of those not going to close in the next 100 days, but I'm building a pipeline by having a strategic timeline. So that's one example of things that I've been able to, and if you put it in one spot in the contract, wide open, and you put it in one spot in the contract that's kind of fine print, people will sometimes see, okay, cool, it's in here like I want, and they forget about the second one. Like that was a duplicative provision. You redlined one of them. Why'd you do that?
So what you're describing sounds to me like something I would never be able to get with the seller, right? The sellers I deal with would push back on that all day long. So you relying on sellers who aren't represented by counsel, or you're saying?
Here's what you're right. Some sellers don't. So I'm working on as the lawyer, I'm working on a case for an 8-park portfolio right now, and the seller has very competent legal counsel, and they redline most of those things actually. I'm dealing with a guy on a 14-park portfolio, and the guy just insisted on using the standard realtor contract, and then allowed us to make an amendment to it with my key provisions, and he just signed it. And he had a lawyer, but the lawyers, if you get a lawyer that's a generalist, if somebody's website says I do divorce, speeding tickets, DUI, and I'm a real estate lawyer, you got the wrong real estate lawyer, right? So if you're buying higher dollar properties, they're probably going to be represented by qualified, competent counsel. But that's just some of the examples. I'll ask you the same question: What do you do? What tips can you share? Not just in the contract as a lawyer, but what tips can you share on how you guys operate and how you, build a creative advantage for yourself, if you will?
I think the biggest creative advantage we have is how we analyze acquisitions and how flexible and creative we are when looking at deals. Because, a lot of our competitors have a box. I only buy 55 and up, or I only do city utilities, and a lot of people come out of the Frank and Dave Mobile Home University course, right? And they've kind of learned a defined buy box, right? Which is what everybody else who goes to Mobile Home University is also looking for. Basically, it means you need to have like 100 Walmarts within 5 miles of your park, and a median home price of, I think, 500,000 or something crazy. Yeah. So, and we, it's hard to find deals, right? It's hard to find deals, period, in this space. It's a hot asset class. The days of this being undiscovered are long over. There's all sorts of sophisticated money in this space. So, we've been able to close roughly 20 acquisitions in 3 years. And the way we've been able to do that is by being creative. And we've bought some beautiful Class A parks at sub 4 caps. And we've bought middle of the road Class B workforce housing. And we've bought some really rough Class C turnarounds in RV parks, on private well and private septic systems. And so we price risk and return specific to each deal, right? We try and look at each deal for what it is and make a kind of a risk return decision. Sure. So I say that's the biggest way we've been creating value. And then on the operations side, we spent a lot of time building a real operating company, right, with a culture, and spending really a lot of time defining our values, hiring the right people, and getting them to understand what we believe in and how that translates to actions in the business, so that we don't have to rely on an operations manual, right? You don't need to go look at the rule book. People have an intuitive understanding of what's the right decision to make.
No, that's great. Yeah, we have a similar operating ethos, if you will. Is just, what's the right thing to do? Do what you say you're going to do, and do the right thing, and then it's pretty easy, right? Yeah. I'm interested on that. You say sub 4 cap. I've never bought a park at a sub. I guess I bought one park at a 0 cap. It was at negative NOI, but I bought it because it had 50 vacant lots and it needed to be turned around. But you're buying Class A park, I'm assuming it's stable and there's not a lot of opportunity for infill. So how are you making that work economically? Do you just have a lower yield requirement for your investors? Because it's almost like Coca-Cola is not going to double in size this year, but Coca-Cola is also not going to go out of business. So is it just a lower yield requirement, like a dividend coupon clipping deal, or what's the play there? I used to own like some triple net stuff and it's coupon clipping for the investors on that, but it's Walgreens isn't going to miss the rent payment either. So it's that risk reward analysis, as you say.
Yeah. So I would say, if you're looking at an institutional quality park in the Western United States, the cap rate range is 3.5% to 4.5% for anything that's over 100 lots, city utilities, decent market.
Right.
And the really nice stuff, like, highly amenitized 55 and up communities, are kind of in that 3.5% to 4% cap range. And yes, I think investors have rightfully seen that these parks stay full all the time, and they cash flowed through the 08-09 recession. They've cash flowed through COVID. You're buying a bond. And I would say you get a bond-like return in terms of cash flow, but there probably is more upside than a triple net deal, because I think the industry as a whole is getting more attractive and more institutional. And I think most investors project cap rate compression, right, over the next decade or so. So, so the groups buying those are, operators like Carlyle Group, Blackstone, groups partner with life insurance companies. And I think most of them are probably underwriting, IRRs in the 8% to 10% range for those types of deals, when you apply leverage and when you have rent growth and when you look at your kind of exit cap rate assumptions.
Got it. That's what I assumed. I just haven't, I've not messed with those myself, but it's like, you're not going to hit your mid-teen IRR when you're buying.
No, exactly. And this is something that has been a real journey for me, and I'd be curious to get your thoughts. You and I both go to the mobile home park conferences, and we kind of, there's a lot of institutional money trying to get into space.
Sure.
Right. And so a lot of people come to me and they say, hey, you're a highly qualified operator. We know we're looking to partner, and we're looking for mid-teen IRRs. And I'm like, all right, I'm not your guy. Like, no one in the Western US is getting mid-teen IRRs on parks, unless maybe unless you're buying parks kind of in the kind of 10 space to 30 space range that are very small, and it's hard to scale the business.
Right.
Like, market cap rates, like I said, in our markets are kind of in that 3.5 to 4.5% range for really nice assets, and for middle of the road stuff, up to a 5 cap. So, IRRs in our markets are like kind of 10 to 12% of the deal level based on our underwriting. And so it's really interesting. Like, these are not the stereotypical, cash machine assets, that are, that you used to be able to get when this was more of a fringe asset class, right? That's been my experience, but I'd be curious. It seems like you in the Midwest, you're still getting, it seems like some really impressive returns based on your strategy.
Yeah, we're in a different market than you, but yeah, honestly, I would, if I ever had a deal that had less than 15 IRR net to the investors, I'd be embarrassed to take it to the investors. We're going for, I just put caps on some of my deals where now it's 25 and 30 IRR. And these are business plans that I'm signing recourse notes on, that I'm putting my reputation on the line for, that I'm going to deliver on. And you can't do that on a stabilized property as easily. So like, we just bought one here in the Kansas City market. It's 36 pads, but it's only got 24 occupied. So, okay, I can sell 12 homes in that market. And I could do it in 1 year, probably. I pro forma 2 years. It's 6 homes a year. We're going to do that. We sold another park in the same market. We sold 50 in 2 years. So, that's that deal is going to have an IRR that's over. If I sold it right now, the IRR would be triple digits. That's because we've taken the value from $1.2 million to $4 million, right? So I got another deal we're closing here in about 2 weeks in the St. Louis market. It's at 95% occupancy. Okay, I can't double the value of that, right? I can maybe squeeze 5% occupancy. I can maybe squeeze 5-10% rents. I can maybe decrease the operating expenses a couple points, but that's a longer term play. But I got good debt on it, and I got I got a 3.24% interest rate, 25-year ammo. I chose a recourse note over a Fannie Mae note because Fannie Mae currently has COVID reserve. There's another $200K. I'll have to raise another $200K. It's going to hurt the yield. Yeah. And instead, I'll sign the note. I don't care. I got lots of other notes. And again, I got my local bank to match the Fannie terms, by the way, but without the COVID. So that makes the cash flow still strong.
Well, it's 25-year ammo, probably with minimal interest only, right? Whereas Fannie would do IO.
Yeah, Fannie would have more IO, and Fannie would have 30. Yeah. So the plan is going to be on that deal is get the last 3 lots, 67 lots. Get the last 3 lots filled. Get the rents up to market. They're about 95% there, 90%. They're a little soft, and I can support an 8 pref, and then double-digit cash on cash, and then IRR in the 17 range.
So what's the end game for your business? Like, you're buying these high yielding parks, but deal size is small relative to what I'm used to seeing, right?
Sure.
$1 million deal, $2 million deal. Right. So I'm curious, like, do you need to keep buying 10 parks a year in order to support the overhead of your headquarters staff?
No, not at all. Actually, I could. My staff is lean. I got like 12 people. Besides, vendors and contractors. I mean, I can. When you do a deal with these metrics, I can live on 1 deal a year. Now I'm doing more than 1 deal a year. I can live well on 2 deals a year, 3 deals a year. So now, the end game is these deals. Most of these are off market, by the way. I mean, I've never paid below a 7 cap. I've paid 15 cap. Even the deals I have under contract right now, none of them are below a 7 cap. So when you get debt terms, this deal is like a 7.9, and I got a 3.24% interest rate. That's a lot of spread. You can create you can do a better yield like that, and this is in a great market. So the end game, eventually, I may roll them up into a fund, but right now some of them are just me and my dad. Some of them I've got investors in. So I'd have that would be more complicated to roll them up, but for diversification, may do that. But I'd love to buy $20 million parks, but the yield is so much less because they're so competitive, right?
Yeah.
I don't have an investor pool big enough or conservative enough that would go for the 8 IRR. So so I'm not chasing those deals. I can't. So I bought some deals on market. I think I probably bought, I don't know, 3 or 4 deals on market, but that's not going to be the norm. And I can't compete on price because I can't raise money on a 5 cap deal. At least I haven't tried. I don't think I can. I haven't tried it, frankly. But
how much cap rate spread are you getting from sourcing off market? Because I will tell you, in my experience, 90% of our deals are off market, right? Almost nothing we've bought has been marketed. Sure. But we're buying off market, and we're still buying at 4 or 5 caps, right? Because at least in our markets, every mobile home park owner gets 3 calls a week from a broker trying to buy their park, or someone who went to Frank and Dave's class and sending them postcards.
Sure.
And they know the value of what they're sitting on. And so for us, buying off market is an opportunity to acquire an asset, which we're excited about, but we're not stealing it. So I'm curious, how does that translate in your market in terms of cap rates that you're paying?
Well, I mean, you're talking spread from on market to off, or spread from the interest rate to the acquisition rate?
So I mean from on market to off. Like if you're paying 7 or 8 caps, if they were marketed, would they also be 7 or 8 caps?
No, they wouldn't. No, they wouldn't be. The spread is going to be at least 150 bips,
Okay.
and in some cases more. Yeah, some cases 300 or 400. Depends what you do a deal. We have a deal right now in Nebraska. We just got under contract. They didn't even counter our offer. We just made an offer, and they're like, "Do we pay too much?" And we're buying it at like a 10 cap. Now it's in a smaller market. It's got upside too. It's 100 plus lots. It's about half full, and 10 cap on current. Like no pro forma, all that. Now, the deal in Iowa we bought a couple months ago, Des Moines, Iowa, was really competitive. So we bought it off. We actually bought it on market, but we got lucky on this one. It was listed as development ground. It's 20 acres of land adjacent to nice neighborhoods. It was listed with the land broker, national company, and we're like, we'll keep the mobile home park too, right? And they're like, you can scrape it. You can build houses here. Like,
no, we like that.
So it's crazy. The mobile home park was appraised like 150,000 more than we bought the whole assemblage for, and we have 12 acres excess ground. So it was on market.
Develop it as a park or sell it off?
Redevelop. I've talked to city about expanding it, and they're not that jonesed about it. So what I'm probably going to do is just land bank it, and then this is probably a shorter term hold for me. I'll probably sell this park in a couple of years once it's 100% occupied, because the market's so good, and there's not a lot more upside on it. Small park, but then I'll just keep the land and wait till a residential developer wants to buy it 20 years from now.
Yeah. Look, I know we should wrap up, but let me ask you another question. Can I? Are we okay on time?
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
So I got a question for you as a dumb Californian. Here's my dumb Californian question. I understand the growth story and the demographics to buy in markets like Des Moines, Iowa, or Omaha, Nebraska, or Indianapolis, or St. Louis, or Kansas City, or Chicago in the suburbs. I get that. But I see listings for parks in rural Illinois or rural Kansas that looks like they're half full. And I Google it, it looks like it has negative population growth. Main Street got boarded up, and most of the young kids have moved to the city. And it sounds like you're buying those deals and getting killer returns. Is that right?
I'm not buying a lot of those deals. Here's where I'll buy them: is that if I get it at a price that I can't say no to, and I think there's an extra strategy. So I've got a park in Illinois it's not that rural. It's 20,000 people, but it's in a metro. It's got two 40,000 towns and a 50,000 town within like 30 minutes of it. So within an hour, 100,000 people. Yeah, I bought that at a 15 cap. So on market, first day full price. But I couldn't sell it at 8, but I could sell it at a 9.5 tomorrow. So it's kind of like you're saying risk reward on your 4 cap. I just do risk reward on the same tertiary market, and then kind of like you guys get creative on some of your financing or utility structures and things like that.
Yeah,
I'll look at a specific town, like my hometown of Quincy, Illinois. It's a great trade area, but it's only 45,000 people. But it's got the hospital, it's got a jail, it's got Super Walmart, it's got the mall, it's got the railroad business, it's got lots of ag, it's got a college, it's got a junior college, it's got the county.
That's the market I'd invest in,
right?
Sure.
But it's only 45,000 people.
Yeah.
And then the recession hit, the prices went down 1% in the residential. So anyway, that's how we kind of spread it around some too. But tell me something else our listeners can learn for scaling. You've obviously built a lot of parks in a relatively short period of time. So how are you scaling your staffing in particular? Because that's been a growing pain for me, and I know some of my clients. Hey, we're trying to hire this and this, and it's hard to get the right people, and turnover and training can be the Achilles heel of a business. So, what tips can you share with me?
That is the most important thing, right? Getting the right people on the bus is the single most important thing that defines success or failure. And it's at the headquarters level, and it's at the asset level, as you know very well, right? The kind of getting the right property manager either, makes your business plan succeed or tanks it if they're not doing their job. So we spent a lot of time developing hiring criteria, and we really don't care about resume, right? We're trying hard to screen for aptitude, and we look for creative problem solving. We look for a customer service ethos, and we look for an ownership mindset.
Okay.
And if you've got that, then property management experience is immaterial. You can learn property management. It's not rocket science. So we've had really good luck finding smart people who might not have had all the advantages in life. A lot of people, I have several managers who are working a retail job for $10 an hour, and they responded to our ad and just knocked it out of the park, right? I could see their aptitude, and we hire them and change their lives, right? They're now in a managerial role and on a growth trajectory. So that's been exciting at the property manager level. And the headquarters team, this has been one of my biggest realizations. I used to think the bigger we got, the more parks we bought, my life would get more stressful because you'd have more work to do. The opposite is true. The bigger we get, the more revenue coming in, the more we can afford to hire good professional people so I can duplicate myself. So we now have a awesome director of operations we hired. She was one of our park managers, and she was, knocking it out of the park, and we elevated her to be our director of operations. We hired someone to do business analytics who had a Wall Street financial background, and she's helping us with all the investor reporting and the strategic projects. And just this week, we brought on our first director of facilities and capital projects, which is a game changer for me as the owner, because I was doing all that stuff, right? Dealing with bids and contracts, and it's not my background. I don't know about if the asphalt was done right, and I don't have time. And so it's liberating to have someone to be like, hey, Jack, that fencing project, can you handle that? He's like, yes, sir. Thank you, Jack.
Yeah.
so I would say the bigger you get, it actually gets easier.
That's great. That's great to hear. And it's hard to grow at times and growing pains, but yeah, I have a guy I only got him half time. He owns his own park too, but I got him half time started about 3 weeks ago, and he's been in the business like 8 years. I'm like, oh man, it's so great. He doesn't need supervision, and he can go supervise the contractor. He can go supervise. It's like, man, this is good, and has new ideas. So yeah, I'm with you that building the good team, building the right team is crucial for growth in particular, but crucial for success.
I also have a contrarian strategy for growth, and my contrarian strategy is I don't always try to hit home run deals. I am happy accepting deals that are good enough, because we're growing a portfolio, we're growing a business, we're growing an operating platform. And so my bar for deals is, are we going to hit our business plan that makes sense given the risk and return profile for this asset? And I don't necessarily need to hit a mid-teen IRR on every deal.
Sure. Yeah. That's a good point. I mean, like, it's kind of like growth stocks for value stocks. I used to stock. I mean, Garmin, when I was doing stock stuff, like, Garmin's going to grow a double, triple, and now they're big enough. But I mean, you're not going to double Anheuser-Busch, right?
Yeah.
In a given year, right? You're not supposed to. There's a different risk reward profile. So yeah, that's kind of like, and in some degree, we're in different geographic portions of the country, so we're not competitors from a geography. But even if we were both in the same, we would not be competitors because we're looking for different return profiles and different risk profiles. So we would buy. There's a park a mile away from me. Son owned it, and I would have loved to buy it, but it was a 500 unit park, so it attracted a different type of investor, and it sold at I don't know what it sold at, but I'm sure a massive premium. It was a great looking park, great clubhouse, great pool, basketball court, playgrounds, tennis court. I mean, it was great. So I'm sure it sold at a 4 cap or something. And that's a different investor. And I was a mile away from me. I already have headquarters, I already have management, I already have maintenance right there, but it was just a different asset type.
Yeah. This has been fun.
Yeah.
I know you said we were gonna go 15 or 20 minutes. It's been 45. Yeah. So Ferdy, you got anything else you want to ask me, or should we call it a wrap?
Well, luckily I charge by the hour, so
No, backwards. I'm charging you. I just donated 45 minutes of my time, so now I get a 45-minute credit for your legal fees.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see about that. We'll see how many referrals I get from this episode. Daniel's great. Where can people find you or reach you after this?
So again, it's Daniel Weisfield. You can see us online at www.threepillarcommunities.com. 3 is spelled out, threepillarcommunities.com, and you'll see there's a little tab to click in the upper right, which is, get on our mailing list. If you get on our mailing list, you'll see our deals, our updates, and it's the best way to keep in touch.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks, Daniel.
This was fun. Thanks, Ferd. Talk to you soon.
All right, bye now.
Bye.